Hey guys, I got a pretty positive response when I asked if people wanted me to explain some economic concepts. So today is the first one, and I know a lot of you want to know about the stock market and stocks to buy, but I thought maybe I would start basic and then we could move on from there. So today I'm going to start with the business cycle and unemployment. Basically, the business cycle is where our economy is throughout the years, okay? So you're at the best, when everybody has jobs, everybody has money, is your peak. At the worst is your trough, high unemployment. When your economy starts to recover, it's a recovery, and then when it goes down is recession. So how do you know if you are in a recession? Okay, well basically, to be consider a recession, it is 6+ months of a declining in your GDP. So if your GDP goes down for 1 or 2 months, that doesn't mean you're necessarily in a recession. But if it's 6+ more, then you are definitely in a recession. So a reminder, what is GDP? GDP stands for gross domestic product. It's the value of all final goods and services produced in a country in a year. So basically the government adds up all the cars, haircuts, doctor services, everything that was produced within our country in 1 year, and that's your GDP. So if your GDP is going up, that's a good thing, but if it's going down 6 months or longer, you're in a recession. A recession is not necessarily a depression. So just to give you an idea, during the Great Depression in the 1930s, in 3 short years, our GDP declined by 40%, which is crazy, astronomical. 1958, we're in another recession. Our GDP went down by 10%. And the recent one that probably many of us remember was 2007 to 2009. Our GDP, the maximum that it went down was by 8.4. So that just gives you an idea, because we all remember 2007, 2008. We all felt it, but we didn't feel it like the people did in the 1930s. So just a difference between a depression and a recession, okay? And so how long is a typical from peak to peak, the average business cycle? It's about 5.5 years. So the problem is our recovery since our last recession in 2007, 2009, we have had 10 years of expanding GDP, up. So it was never gonna go up forever. So there is a time where it has to start going down. And unfortunately, when you have a pandemic and you have Russia and Saudi Arabia fighting about oil prices, things are not necessarily, it doesn't mean we're gonna be here, but we just have to be really careful. So how does that affect you and I? Well, that's where we're gonna talk about the unemployment rate. Unfortunately, some of us are going to lose our jobs. How does the government calculate unemployment rate? Basically, there's a labor force. A labor force are people that are able and willing to have a job. They wanna work, okay? So a 2-year-old will not be in the labor force. A 21-year-old that just is not looking for a job is not part of the labor force. So what they do is they calculate the number of people that are actively looking for a job, that want a job, and they divide it by the unemployed plus the people that have jobs, and they multiply it times 100. And so full employment is basically 4 to 5% and is considered full employment. So you always have people that are unemployed for whatever reason, they get sick so that's 4 to 5% is good. And I think in the last 10 years, ours has been like a lot less than that. So if you have unemployment of 10%, that's high, that's bad. And that is basically what you're gonna see in a recession, unfortunately. Winners and losers in a recession. Does everybody lose? Well, most of us are not doing, the best we could, but you will see recession-proof industries. We all have to have medicine. We all have to have milk, bread, eggs, stuff like that. How is the government gonna help us? Basically, Donald Trump he's primed to pump more than $1 trillion into our economy in different ways. And so that is a whole nother video that we'll get to. But anyway, business cycle, we can't go up forever. Hopefully the recession won't last for too long. And lastly, I guess I thought for ending each one of my videos, I would have my 3 recommendations. My first podcast recommendation is Planet Money. They're about 10 to 15 minutes. They're really fun. They're interesting. Episode 672 talks about the Birkin bag and why it's actually an investment, crazily enough. Book, I recommend Naked Economics. That was my first economics book that I loved. And then a movie I thought many of us have watched and forgot about, Enron. That was a pretty good one. So if you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear from you. Thank you.